Hello and welcome to Japan Lyric Room. In this program, we explore the lyrics of Japanese songs, delivering clear explanations of their meanings and unique cultural backgrounds. Please note that while the voices and illustrations in this video are AI-generated, the project itself is run by two Japanese creators living in Japan. The script is carefully researched and written by us to provide original explanations. So, with that out of the way, I am so thrilled to have you here for today's lyric explanation.
Oh, thank you. It's really great to be here. And the song we are unpacking today isn't just a regular hit. I mean, it is a massive cultural monument.
It really, really is. Because think about this. What if Spider-Man's most iconic battle pose, the one recognized by billions of people, wasn't a weapon at all? What if it was actually the secret message of connection, just hidden right in plain sight?
Right, which is just a wild shift in perspective.
Exactly, and that is the kind of mind-bending realization we are getting into today as we explore the lyrics of Brand New by Mrs. Green Apple. Let me just set the stage for you. This track dropped digitally on July 13th, 2026, and it absolutely took over the planet.
Yeah, totally. You couldn't escape it.
Right. I mean, it swept the #1 spots on Apple Music and Spotify, racked up over 12 million weekly streams on Billboard Japan, and just became this unstoppable global UGC phenomenon.
User-generated content, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you opened any social media app at all, you were hearing the song, and, that global resonance wasn't an accident.
No, not at all. The song was engineered with a very specific cinematic emotional core.
Because Brand New was written specifically to be the Japanese theme song for the blockbuster movie Spider-Man. Brand New Day, which hit theaters simultaneously in the US and Japan on July 31st.
Right, a massive global release.
Yeah. But the origin story behind this collaboration is what really hooked me. The band didn't just sit in a studio in Tokyo and wait for an email with instructions. They physically traveled to Los Angeles.
Wow, that shows some serious dedication.
Right. They walked right onto the Sony Pictures lot, and they weren't just sitting in a stiff corporate boardroom. They had these deeply heartfelt, incredibly intimate creative sessions with the literal architects of the Marvel Universe.
You mean like the top executives?
Yeah. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige, producer Amy Pascal, and the film's director, Destin Daniel Cretton.
Oh, wow. You can just imagine the energy in that room.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, it wasn't about marketing demographics or anything like that. It was entirely about character.
Completely about character.
Yeah, through those intense discussions, the Marvel creators and the band found this, perfect resonant alignment on Peter Parker's narrative. They needed to capture the essence of a young man carrying an immense, almost unquantifiable loneliness.
Because he has been completely forgotten by the world.
Exactly. His slate was wiped devastatingly clean. Despite that crushing psychological weight, he still laces up his boots and chooses to move forward as an everyday hero. And the band just absorbed that exact emotional frequency. They poured 120% of their passion right into the music.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because there is this crucial visual and thematic motif that became the bridge between the superhero and the song.
I love this part.
It's so good, right? Think about Spider-Man's web shooter gesture, pressing the middle and ring fingers into the palm while leaving the index, pinky, and thumb extended. Well, it turns out that exact physical handshake is the sign language gesture for I love you.
It is just one of those beautiful serendipitous coincidences that it completely changes how you view a character.
Totally.
And that realization actually became the creative engine for this entire project. It inspired the song's key lyrical themes, the jacket artwork, the promotional campaigns. I mean, it takes a gesture of violence and combat and completely reframes it as a gesture of profound, silent connection.
I just love that shift in perspective so much. And just to give you a bit of context on the band themselves before we look at the words, Brand New is a massive milestone for Mrs. Green Apple.
Oh, definitely. A huge turning point.
Yeah, they just crossed their 10th anniversary, and this song marks their official entry into what they are calling their Phase 3.
Which you can actually physically see in the music video.
Oh, absolutely. It opens with this raw, gritty, almost claustrophobic garage band performance, which captures that initial impulsive creative spark, and then it just visually explodes. You get these gravity-defying wire action sequences across the Tokyo skyline, rendered with stunning CG and AI.
It's an auditory and visual leap from the grounded to the boundless.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's trace that journey. We are going to explore the lyrics of Brand New by walking through the song in chronological order, uncovering the cultural nuances in the Japanese language, and figuring out how they build this emotional powerhouse.
Sounds perfect. Where do we start?
The song begins in that quiet, grounded space we mentioned with this line. In English, that translates to, knowing loneliness to know love.
A very powerful opening.
Yeah, and here's the core takeaway for this line. Cultural nuance. Only through the lived experience of true isolation can one fully comprehend the depth of genuine love.
You know, the Japanese verb used here is shiru, which translates to know. But the cultural weight of that word is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Wait, let me push back on that for a second, though. Is knowing really the right framework here? I mean, I know what a broken bone is because I read about it, or, I know what sadness is from watching a movie, but that doesn't mean I suddenly possess this deep, transformative empathy. Does the Japanese language treat the concept of knowing differently?
Oh, that is a crucial distinction, yes. In Western contexts, we often separate cognitive knowledge from physical experience. But in Japanese culture, shiru is deeply somatic.
Somatic meaning, like felt in the body.
Exactly. It isn't merely the cognitive acquisition of a fact. It means the experience has been physically and spiritually engraved into your body and mind. You haven't just observed the concept of loneliness, you have lived inside its crushing weight.
Ah, I see. So it isn't just Peter Parker reading a file about being alone. His entire reality, his body, literally feels the absence of the people who forgot him.
Precisely. And Japanese culture often frames that kind of absolute isolation, not just as a tragedy, but as a crucible. It is a sacred, painful process of self-reflection. By walking through the shadow of absolute solitude, your capacity for empathy expands exponentially.
Wow, that makes sense.
Yeah, and the music here usually strips back, maybe just an isolated vocal or a solitary acoustic guitar, mirroring that somatic emptiness. It proves that this loneliness is the prerequisite to truly understanding the warmth of love.
But you can't stay in that isolated acoustic space forever, right? I mean, once that profound empathy is unlocked, it demands movement, it demands action.
It has to, yeah.
And the lyric perfectly captures that mobilization. That translates to engaging 5 senses to save you, that is, in other words, saving me too, which leads us to this understanding, cultural nuance. Engaging all 5 physical senses to save you ultimately becomes the very act that rescues me.
Such a dynamic line.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Gokan means the 5 physical senses, and honestly, it is impossible not to playfully compare this to the famous spider sense. The instrumentation picks up, there is an intense physical urgency, and he is mobilizing sight, sound, and touch to act.
It is a brilliant visceral image. But what's fascinating here is the deep philosophy embedded in the verb suku, which translates to save.
Okay, I have to stop you here, though, because I've heard this argued before. Catching a falling car, pulling someone from a burning building, dodging debris, that is a physical rescue. It's just adrenaline. But the way this lyric is framed, it sounds almost like a religious awakening. Isn't calling a superhero fight scene spiritual salvation just overcomplicating an action sequence? I mean, how does jumping in front of a bullet spiritually save the person doing the jumping?
It is a totally fair caution,
right?
But you have to look at the void Peter Parker is standing over. In Japanese, suku operates on multiple dimensions. Yes, it is the physical extraction from danger, but historically and ethically, it also means to liberate a soul from despair.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Right, because Peter has lost all his connections. He's teetering on the edge of utter nihilism. If he does nothing, his identity just ceases to exist. So by throwing himself into the chaotic physical act of saving a stranger, by being entirely altruistic, he is literally tethering himself to reality.
Oh, wow.
The act of saving you is the only mechanism left that spiritually rescues him from his own despair. It is where altruism and egoism perfectly harmonize.
Man, he is rescuing his own reason to exist. That gives me chills. And that spiritual salvation is expressed in the most unexpected, silent way, bringing us right back to that web shooter motif we discussed earlier.
Yes, the sign language connection.
Exactly. The lyric goes, translated, this means, beyond I love you, I am no longer alone, right? Listen closely to what this represents. Cultural nuance, stepping beyond I love you, I realize that I am no longer alone.
This is where the lyrical themes and the physical character design just merge flawlessly. The phrase no saki translates to beyond or further ahead. It implies breaking past existing limits. Because spoken words, even a phrase as universally powerful as I love you, well, they have boundaries.
They can be inadequate.
Exactly. Or in Peter's case, they might not even be remembered by the person he says them to.
Right, because his memory has been wiped from their minds. So saying it out loud almost feels like a taunt. I also noticed the stuttering in the vocal delivery here. I love you. It almost mimics the thwip sound of his webs, or even the physical hesitation of a traumatized kid trying to express affection again. But then he adds this tiny syllable at the end of the phrase, ne. Boku wa mu hitori jonai ne.
Yes, that tiny particle is doing an immense amount of emotional work.
It really is. It translates roughly to, isn't it, or right. But the way it is sung, it doesn't sound like he is shouting to the crowd or asking for validation. It sounds like a whisper to himself. You can just picture him in the middle of this deafening, chaotic battle, taking a microsecond to breathe and whispering it as a gentle, intimate self-reassurance.
It acts as an internal anchor, stepping beyond spoken language into the realm of silent action, like the web shooter gesture, allows him to acknowledge that the bonds he forged still live inside him, even if the rest of the world has forgotten them.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I am tracking with this beautiful Zen-like realization. He's found connection beyond words, but if he just achieved this profound peace, the very next line feels like a sudden jarring gut punch.
Yeah, it takes a turn.
It really does. He sings, translated, "When the wounds in my breast ache already, paying a sacrifice, what do I save?" And the deeper meaning hits hard, cultural nuance. When the wounds in my heart begin to ache, what am I really saving by sacrificing myself? I don't get it. Why is he suddenly doubting everything? I thought we just established he found his purpose through saving people.
Well, because the song refuses to romanticize the superhero experience. It is inherently honest about the eternal absurdity of the job. Notice the phrase "mune no kizu," which means the wounds in the chest.
Are these physical wounds?
No, these aren't the physical bruises from fighting a villain. These are psychological scars. It is the cyclical, agonizing grief of remembering the people you couldn't save or the people you had to leave behind just to wear the mask.
Oh, so it is the emotional toll of the job creeping back in, no matter how much good you do.
Precisely. And it forces you, the listener, to interrogate the classic golden age trope of, with great power comes great responsibility. It is a harsh, deeply human question. What is the point of constantly saving the world if the price is the perpetual bleeding sacrifice of your own happiness?
That is so heavy.
It is. If every victory requires a piece of your soul, what are you truly achieving? The music likely drops in tempo here, maybe shifting into minor chords, grounding the soaring superhero narrative into a very painful, relatable reality.
And that transition is exactly where the song zooms the camera out from the guy in the spandex and points it directly at you, the listener. Because that emotional exhaustion isn't limited to saving the multiverse.
Not at all.
That brings us to this incredibly relatable lyric. Translated, this means, fighting an indefinable something again today. Listen to what this captures about our daily lives. Cultural nuance. Day after day, I continue to fight an indefinable sense of helplessness and sorrow. This word, yarusanai. I've heard it used, but what does it actually feel like physically?
Yarusanai is one of those uniquely Japanese emotional descriptors that resists a clean English translation. Mostly because it encompasses a whole atmosphere of feeling. It is a chest-tightening, suffocating dread. It is a profound sense of helplessness where there's no clear solution, no obvious enemy to defeat, and no clear way to lift the gloom.
So it's not a supervillain threatening to blow up a bridge. It is you, sitting on the commuter train on a rainy Tuesday morning. Your boss sent a passive-aggressive email, the news cycle is grim, your rent went up, and you just feel this heavy, dragging weight.
Exactly. That is Yarusanai.
Yeah.
And by choosing to say he is fighting Nanika, which means a vague, indefinable something, the song transforms into an ode to the ordinary person. It validates the struggles that don't make the evening news. The superhero's battle against cosmic threats perfectly mirrors your quiet, daily struggle against the Yarusanai absurdity of modern life.
Man, it really makes you feel seen. But if the world is filled with that vague, suffocating helplessness, how do we, or how does the hero, actually protect the things that matter? How do you shield anything in that environment?
It's a great question, and the song answers it beautifully.
It does, with a stunning piece of imagery, translated, people's dreams wrapped in a cocoon. And the nuance here is incredibly tender, cultural nuance. The fragile, precious dreams of people, quietly sheltered as if kept safe inside a warm cocoon. I have to say, this metaphor completely divides my expectations.
Oh, how so?
Well, usually when we think of a spider's web, we immediately think of a trap. We picture a terrifying predator catching its prey to devour it. But here, the web is a mayu, a cocoon.
It is a brilliant subversion of the motif. Instead of a weapon of violence or entrapment, the web becomes a blanket. The Japanese phrase uses the verb sutsumareru, which is a passive expression meaning to be wrapped up. In Japanese literary context, being wrapped conveys a profound sense of warmth, silence, and womb-like safety.
So the hero isn't just using his webs to swing from skyscrapers or tie up bank robbers. He is physically swaddling the hopes of humanity.
Yes, because dreams and hopes are incredibly fragile, especially in a reality saturated with that yarusanai helplessness we just talked about. The hero's ultimate role isn't just to punch villains. It is a deeply maternal one. It is to gently and quietly shelter those pure, fragile dreams of ordinary people, to keep them safe inside that warm cocoon until the people are strong enough to hatch and let those dreams fly on their own.
That maternal imagery for a male superhero is so refreshing and beautiful. And this entire journey we've been on, the somatic crush of loneliness, the desperate physical rescue to save oneself, the psychological toll and the gentle swaddling of others' dreams, it all crests into this massive, ultimate rebirth.
The climax of the song.
Exactly. The final lyric we are exploring today is, translated it means, shaking hands with hope, staring back into the mirror, brand new self. And here is the triumphant takeaway, cultural nuance. By shaking hands with hope and facing my reflection in the mirror, I am reborn as a brand new self.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to pay close attention to the linguistic choices here. The use of the English loanword shake hand is incredibly deliberate.
Really? Why is that?
Well, in Japanese, there are plenty of words for gripping or holding tightly. But shaking hands implies a proactive, almost lighthearted reconciliation. It is a greeting between equals. He isn't clinging to hope out of sheer desperation, he is welcoming it as a partner.
Oh, I love that. And then the act of looking in the mirror means he is finally facing his true identity. He isn't looking away from the scars on his chest. You can't build a new self by pretending the past didn't happen, right? You have to look your grief right in the eye. But then we get to this word Ma-ata-ra-shii, which translates to brand new. How does that differ from just saying ata-ra-shii, which means new?
The prefix Ma-ata-ra-shii elevates the adjective to a state of absolute, undeniable purity. It is significantly stronger. It means shedding all past chains and wiping the slate completely clean while still retaining the deep wisdom of the pain you've lived through.
It's like a complete rebirth.
Exactly. It perfectly encapsulates Spider-Man's new cinematic journey, where he must redefine who he is without his past safety nets. And, crucially, it boldly reflects Mrs. Green Apple's own evolution into their Phase 3, a pure, unburdened, and musically expansive step into their future. The musical composition here likely swells into a massive, euphoric stadium rock climax to match that emotional high.
It really is a masterpiece of songwriting. To wrap all of this up emotionally, Brand New by Mrs. Green Apple is such a realistic yet incredibly uplifting anthem. It doesn't shy away from the dark stuff. It acknowledges the somatic loneliness, the heavy psychological cost of sacrifice, and that very real yarusanai dread of our everyday commute. But it shows us that by reaching out, by gently protecting the dreams of others, we actually build the bridge to save ourselves. It is about finding a way, despite everything the world throws at you, to look in the mirror and shake hands with hope.
Which leaves you, the listener, with a compelling question to carry with you today. In a world where we are constantly told to just move on, to numb ourselves and to forget our pain, what if true strength, the real superpower, isn't about never feeling lonely? What if it is about our ability to stand in front of the mirror, acknowledge every single one of our scars, and consciously choose to construct a brand new self every single morning?
Thank you so much for listening. We feature various Japanese songs and provide detailed explanations on our website. Please check the link in the description to explore more. If you enjoyed this program, please subscribe to our channel and let us know your thoughts or song requests in the comments. See you next time. This was Japan Lyric Room.